Tessa Carter had always believed in loyalty. She believed in hard work, in giving her best, and in standing by the company she had helped build from the ground up. For 20 years, she had arrived early, stayed late, missed out on vacations, and sacrificed personal time, all to ensure that King and Associates thrived. She had poured her soul into this job, treating it not just as a paycheck, but as her second home. But now, standing outside the executive conference room, she felt like a fool. She had only come to the office to retrieve some documents she needed to review while on sick leave. She wasn't supposed to be here. And yet, fate had led her straight to the moment that shattered everything. The door was slightly ajar, and as she reached for the handle, she heard her name. "She's been here for 20 years, came the unmistakable voice of her boss, Lawrence King, smooth but dismissive. "That's long enough, don't you think?" Tessa froze. "She's dedicated," another voice offered. "Probably Mitchell, the head of operations. Loyal, reliable." Yes, but let's be honest," Lawrence continued. "She's past her prime. We need new energy, someone younger, more dynamic." A few chuckles echoed around the room. Tessa's breath caught in her throat. "We're talking about a 40-year-old woman, Lawrence," another executive said, hesitant. "It's not like she's old. In this industry, she might as well be," Lawrence scoffed. "And besides, my cousin deserves a shot. He's fresh out of business school, sharp, full of ideas. He'll bring something new to the table." It's time to move on from Tessa. A silence stretched before someone finally asked, "Does she know yet?" Lawrence let out a short laugh. "Not yet. I'll inform her when she gets back from her little vacation." A hard lump formed in Tessa's throat. Vacation? She was on medical leave, taking time off because the years of stress and exhaustion had finally caught up with her. She had given 2 decades of her life to this company. And just like that, they were tossing her aside for some kid who had never put in a single hour of hard work? She took a step back, bile rising in her throat. She felt sick. How could they? The betrayal burned through her veins, but she willed herself to stay quiet. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction of knowing she had heard. Not yet. Tessa turned and walked away, her head held high. But as she left the building, her heart hardened. If they thought she was dispensable, she would show them just how irreplaceable she truly was. If she had built King and Associates, she could just as easily tear it down. That night, Tessa sat in the dim glow of her apartment, her laptop open in front of her. The city hummed outside her window, the neon lights flickering in the darkness. She couldn't shake the weight of what she had heard. She had been naive. She had trusted Lawrence. She had trusted this company to value her. Her fingers clenched into fists. Just then, her phone buzzed. A message from Daniel Walker, her closest colleague at work. "Daniel, Tessa, I need to show you something. Check your email." Her stomach twisted as she reached for her laptop. Within seconds, she found Daniel's email. Attached was a video file. She hesitated for only a moment before pressing play. The screen flickered to life, and there they were, Lawrence King, the executives, all sitting around that sleek, polished conference table. I mean, Tessa has been great, sure. But do we really need her anymore? She's not as sharp as she used to be, and let's be honest, she's not exactly the face we want leading this department anymore. My cousin will bring in fresh energy. Tessa's nails dug into her palm. One of the executives shifted in his seat. But she's been loyal. And she practically built our client base. Lawrence waved a dismissive hand. And that's exactly why we don't need her anymore. The foundation is set. We'll transition my cousin in, and in a few weeks, no one will even remember Tessa Carter. Tessa's breath hitched. No one will even remember her? The video ended. She sat there, staring at the screen, her body cold, her mind hot with rage. Her phone buzzed again. "Daniel, I figured you should know. This isn't right. You deserve better." She exhaled sharply, her pulse steadying as her anger solidified into something else, resolve. "Tessa, I was at the office today. I heard everything." Almost immediately, her phone rang. She answered. Tessa. Daniel's voice was low, filled with concern. I'm so sorry. She cut him off. They think they can just throw me away? Her voice was calm, but there was an edge to it. Daniel hesitated. I didn't want you to be blindsided. I appreciate it. She leaned back in her chair, her gaze unfocused. But don't worry, Daniel. What do you mean? Tessa's lips curled into a small, humorless smile. If I built that company, I can tear it down. There was a beat of silence on the other end of the line. Tessa, Daniel said cautiously, what are you planning? She looked out the window, her reflection staring back at her. I'm going to make them regret ever thinking they could replace me. Tessa barely slept that night. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of her 20 years at King and Associates. The sacrifices, the long nights, the weekends spent hunched over reports instead of enjoying life. She had fought for this company like it was her own. And in the end, she was nothing but a pawn they could discard. She sat up, exhaling sharply. No more. Reaching for her phone, she scrolled through her contacts until she found the name she was looking for, Jeremiah Cole, a former colleague turned competitor. He had left King and Associates 5 years ago to start his own firm. Back then, Lawrence had laughed at him, said he wouldn't last 6 months. Now, Jeremiah's company was thriving. And if there was anyone who would love to see King and Associates fall, it was him. She hesitated for only a second before sending a message. Tessa, I have information that could give you the upper hand against King and Associates. Let's talk. She set the phone down, her pulse steady, her decision made. If Lawrence wanted war, she was ready. Jeremiah responded within minutes. Jeremiah, Tessa Carter? Didn't expect to hear from you. I'm listening. She smirked. Tessa, meet me at Hilton Cafe. Tomorrow, 7 p.m. Jeremiah, interesting. I'll be there. The next evening, Tessa arrived early, choosing a quiet booth in the back of the cafe. She ordered a black coffee, her fingers tapping against the porcelain cup as she waited. At exactly 7 p.m., Jeremiah walked in. He hadn't changed much, tall, well-dressed, with the same sharp, calculating eyes. The last time they had spoken, he had tried to recruit her, but she had been too loyal to King and Associates. How ironic. Tessa, he said smoothly, sliding into the seat across from her. This is unexpected. She leaned forward, her eyes locked onto his. I assume you've heard that King and Associates is doing well. Jeremiah scoffed. For now. She smiled. What if I told you I could change that? He tilted his head. Go on. For the next 30 minutes, Tessa laid everything out. The weaknesses, the vulnerabilities, the backdoor dealings that Lawrence had kept hidden. The contracts they had secured unfairly. The loopholes in their financials that, if exposed, would send clients running. Jeremiah listened, silent and intense. When she finished, he sat back, his fingers steepled. You could have walked away, Tessa. Why this? She met his gaze, her voice steady. Because I gave them my life, and they threw me away like I was nothing. A slow smile spread across his face. Then let's make sure they regret it. Over the next few weeks, Tessa worked in silence. She still showed up at King and Associates every morning, still smiled at her coworkers, still acted as if she didn't know what was coming. But behind the scenes, she was feeding Jeremiah everything he needed. And then, the first blow landed. It started with a small contract, one that King and Associates had been certain they would win. But Jeremiah's firm swooped in at the last second, armed with inside knowledge that only someone on the inside could have given them. Lawrence was furious. Meetings were called. Accusations were thrown. But Tessa sat quietly at her desk, watching, waiting. It was only the beginning. The tension inside King and Associates was thick enough to cut with a knife. Lawrence stormed in that morning, his face red with barely contained rage. We lost the Gibson contract, he barked, slamming his briefcase onto the conference table. Murmurs spread among the executives. The Gibson contract was supposed to be a done deal. The company had worked on securing it for months. But overnight, it had slipped through their fingers, straight into Jeremiah Cole's hands. Tessa sat at her desk, pretending to type an email, but inside, she was relishing every second of it. Lawrence's voice cut through the murmurs. How the hell did Cole know our offer? Silence. Nobody had an answer. But Tessa did. She had spent the last few weeks carefully feeding Jeremiah every critical detail. Every proposal, every pricing strategy, every negotiation tactic Lawrence planned to use. And now, the cracks in King and Associates were starting to show. That afternoon, Daniel stopped by her desk, leaning against it casually. "You hear about Gibson?" he asked, keeping his voice low. Tessa nodded, not looking up. Hard to miss. Daniel studied her. Something tells me this wasn't a coincidence. She finally met his gaze. What are you implying? He smirked. Just that if I had been betrayed after 20 years of loyalty, I wouldn't walk away quietly. She held his stare for a moment before a slow smile curved her lips. And if I were to do something, would you stop me? Daniel chuckled. Stop you? I'd help you. Her smile deepened. Good to know. By the following week, the rumors had begun. Clients were pulling out of deals. Investors were growing restless. And then the bombshell hit. A whistleblower, anonymous, of course, had leaked a damning report about King and Associates' unethical business practices. It spread like wildfire. Media outlets picked it up. Stockholders demanded answers. Lawrence tried to contain the damage, but the harder he fought, the faster his empire crumbled. Behind closed doors, Tessa watched it all unfold, her heart pounding with satisfaction. She had built this company, and now she was burning it to the ground. One evening, after everyone had left, Lawrence sat alone in his office, staring at the financial reports. The numbers were bleeding red. The company was on the verge of collapse. And then his phone buzzed. A message from Tessa. Tessa, consider this my official resignation. I refuse to stay where I am not valued. She leaned back, exhaling slowly. It was done. She had taken her power back. And she had no regrets. Lawrence King sat frozen in his chair, staring at his phone screen. Tessa Carter had resigned. A woman who had spent 2 decades building his company had walked away, without a second thought. His hands clenched into fists. His company was crumbling. Clients were pulling out. Jeremiah Cole was scooping up business faster than he could react. And now, the only person who could have helped him fix it was gone. He shot up from his chair, grabbing his coat. He needed to talk to her. Tessa was in her kitchen, sipping on a glass of wine, when the loud banging started at her door. She didn't even need to check to know who it was. With a sigh, she set down her glass and walked to the door. The moment she opened it, Lawrence barged in, his face desperate. Tessa, please, he said, his voice unsteady. We need to talk. She crossed her arms. About what? You can't just leave like this. His voice wavered, the weight of his downfall evident in his eyes. Tessa, the company. She scoffed. The same company you were ready to throw me out of without a second thought? He swallowed hard. I made a mistake. She let out a bitter laugh. A mistake? She took a slow step toward him, her voice laced with quiet fury. You sat in that meeting and called me too old. You planned to throw me away like trash after everything I've done for that company. And now that it's falling apart, you come running back. Tessa, please. He ran a hand through his hair, his arrogance gone, replaced with raw desperation. I need you. The company needs you. She shook her head, a smirk tugging at her lips. You never needed me, Lawrence. You just never thought I was capable of destroying you. His lips parted, but no words came out. She leaned in slightly, her voice low but firm. I built King and Associates and I could have saved it. But I chose not to. Because I refused to go back to a place where I was never valued. She turned, grabbed the door, and pulled it open. Now get out. Lawrence stared at her for a long moment, his shoulders sagging in defeat. Then, without another word, he walked out. The door clicked shut behind him. Tessa exhaled, a deep satisfaction settling in her chest. She had won. And she was never looking back. Tessa woke up the next morning feeling lighter than she had in years. For the first time in 2 decades, she had no obligation to King and Associates. No deadlines. No endless reports. No ungrateful boss breathing down her neck. Just freedom. She took a deep breath, stretching as the morning sun streamed through her bedroom window. Her phone buzzed. It was Daniel. Daniel, you're a legend. Lawrence is losing his mind over you leaving. You should see the office, it's chaos. Tessa chuckled, shaking her head. She had no regrets. Then, another message popped up. Jeremiah Cole, Tessa, I'd like to meet. I have a proposal for you. She raised an eyebrow. Interesting. That evening, Tessa met Jeremiah at an upscale lounge downtown. Unlike their last meeting, this time, the tension was gone. Jeremiah smiled as she took her seat. You really did a number on King and Associates. She smirked. They had it coming. He nodded. I admire what you did. But I didn't ask you here just to congratulate you. Tessa leaned forward. Then what do you want? He studied her for a moment before saying, come work for me. She blinked, caught off guard. I don't mean as an employee, he continued. I mean as a partner. Someone with your experience, your knowledge. You don't belong under someone's thumb, Tessa. You should be building something of your own. She stared at him, processing his words. A partner. She had spent 20 years making another man rich while being paid peanuts. But now, an opportunity was in front of her, one where she could finally claim what she deserved. What do you say? Jeremiah asked, watching her closely. Tessa exhaled slowly. Then, a slow, confident smile spread across her lips. I say, let's do it. Tessa stepped into the sleek, glass-walled office that Jeremiah had arranged for their new firm. It was modern, sophisticated, and, most importantly, hers. She ran her fingers across the polished mahogany desk, taking in the space. This wasn't just another job. This was her legacy in the making. Jeremiah walked in behind her, handing over a file. We have 5 major clients lined up already. Once the news spreads that you're with us, more will come. Tessa smirked. Let's give them something to talk about. And with that, she got to work. Within 2 months, Cole & Carter Consulting became the fastest-growing firm in the industry. Clients who had once trusted King and Associates were now shifting to Tessa's new company, drawn in by her expertise, reputation, and leadership. Meanwhile, King and Associates was on life support. Without Tessa's guidance, projects were delayed, contracts were lost, and the company's reputation was in freefall. Lawrence tried everything, cutting costs, hiring consultants, but nothing worked. And then, one afternoon, he did something he never thought he'd have to do. He picked up the phone and dialed Tessa Carter. Tessa was reviewing reports in her office when her assistant knocked. Ma'am, there's a call for you. Who is it? The assistant hesitated. Lawrence King. Tessa raised an eyebrow. She had been waiting for this moment. With a sigh, she picked up the phone. Lawrence. Tessa. His voice was strained, almost unrecognizable. I need your help. She leaned back in her chair, enjoying the desperation in his tone. Help? That's funny. Because the last time I remember, you thought I was too old to be of use. He exhaled sharply. I was wrong. I shouldn't have pushed you out. You didn't push me out, Lawrence, she corrected. I left on my own terms. There was silence on the line. Then, he finally admitted the company is falling apart. Investors are pulling out and clients are leaving for Cole's firm. I need you back, Tessa. We can fix this. She let out a soft, mocking laugh. Go back, she repeated. Go back to a place where I was underpaid, unappreciated, and discarded like trash? Tessa, I'll double your salary. No, triple it. You can have full control over operations. She smirked. I already have full control. Of my own company. Tessa. No, Lawrence. She cut him off. I won't go back to my vomit. I built your empire, and when I needed you to value me, you threw me away. Now you're begging me to save you? No. She let her voice drop to a cold whisper. Watch your empire burn, Lawrence. And with that, she ended the call. As she set her phone down, a deep sense of satisfaction washed over her. She had won. And she was never looking back. Lawrence King sat in his darkened office, staring at the pile of termination notices on his desk. King and Associates was collapsing. Investors had pulled out. Key clients had defected to Cole and Carter Consulting. His employees were resigning one by one, and without Tessa's expertise, he was bleeding money at an alarming rate. He had tried to secure loans, but no bank was willing to take a risk on a sinking ship. The final blow came when his cousin, the very one he had planned to replace Tessa with, walked into his office with a resigned look. "Lawrence, I'm leaving." Lawrence's blood ran cold. "What?" "I got an offer from Cole and Carter," his cousin admitted, avoiding his gaze. "Jeremiah and Tessa are building something big, and I'd be stupid not to take the opportunity." Lawrence's fingers dug into his chair's armrests. The very man he had destroyed Tessa's career for was abandoning him for her. It was over. By the end of the month, King and Associates officially shut down. Tessa stood in her new office, overlooking the city skyline. It had been 6 months since she walked away from King and Associates, and in that time, she had built something even greater. Cole and Carter Consulting had not only grown, but had surpassed every competitor, cementing itself as an industry leader. And she had done it on her terms. Jeremiah entered her office, grinning. "We just landed another major client. Looks like King and Associates' last remaining partners are coming to us." Tessa chuckled. Poetic justice. She took a deep breath, letting the weight of her success sink in. Once, she had been undervalued, discarded, and overlooked. Now, she was the one calling the shots. She picked up her phone and typed a simple message to Daniel. "We made it." As she hit send, a sense of deep satisfaction filled her. This was more than revenge. This was victory. And she was just getting started. Hi, besties. Thank you so much for watching to the end. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.